everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. Welcome to a special edition of the Bubble Lounge podcast. I'm Martha Jackson. We're your neighborhood podcast, and we started 3 years ago to introduce you to neighbors, bring resources to you to make your life easier, and to support local businesses. So speaking of neighbors, I have two neighbors I want to introduce you tonight who are running for the Highland Park Independent School District School Board. The candidates for Place 5 are Ellen Lee and Spencer Siino. Election day is May 7th, and we wanted to give you an option of being able to meet the candidates in a more casual environment. I'm going to ask the candidates a series of questions, and we're going to alternate between the two of who answers first. And we're going to get a 1-minute warning and a chat that the four of us can see. And so we're going to go from there. Well, our producer will be monitoring, and he'll give us that chat. First, we have Spencer Siino. Spencer, can you introduce us to yourself and tell us a little bit about your background as far as your volunteer work at the schools, how many kids you have in the school district, and your work background?
Okay. Well, yes, my name is Spencer Siino. I have 4 children. Andrew is 15 in 9th grade. Mary is 13 in the 8th grade. And George and Spencer are both 12. They're 6th graders. At the end of last year, we actually moved our children to Cambridge. They were all enrolled in the district before then. I'm the CEO of Jet Insurance Company. As the name implies, it's an insurance company that focuses on surety bonds. We issue surety bonds for businesses all across the country. That's been a business I've been in since I left Wall Street in 2006. You asked about volunteerism as well, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So I always have a great time participating with my children. I think the number one thing that I've done, with the community or the bulk of my time has been as a coach. I love coaching basketball. I coach my boys in football, baseball, and of course, leading their Bible studies, and then participating in the DAGS club activities and the and the cafeteria duty and things along those lines.
Ellen, can you introduce yourself and tell us about your volunteer work in the school system, how many kids you have in the district, and your background and work?
You bet. So I was born and raised here, graduated from the high school in 1992. My husband, Paul, was also born and raised here. He graduated in 94. My mom graduated in 1958, so we go all the way back to 1958. And then we've got a niece who's a first grader currently. So we've got 3 generations, and I think something like 26 Scotties in there. And in terms of my involvement with the district, when my kids were little, it was a lot of things that Spencer mentioned: cafeteria, classroom, field trips, that sort of thing. But in my children's later years, we spent 5 years in Austin, from 2011 to 2016. And when we came back and my oldest was starting in high school, I kind of restarted that level of involvement. One that I participated in was the 2019 rezoning committee, when we added Boone as a 5th elementary school and needed to redraw the lines for attendance zones. I loved that process. It was very collaborative and transparent, a good mix of community members and district personnel. I also participated in the Golden Pennies campaign. Our teachers are beloved, and paying them is a constant challenge. And I was glad that we could take advantage of the Golden Pennies and tax revenue that's not recapturable by the state to help boost teacher pay. And then the one that is probably closest to my heart, because it has been the best use of my gifts and talents, has been at the high school, serving on literature review committees as a new book is recommended at the high school to be added to a grade level English course. And I've done that 3 times, each time with a dozen parents. And it has been a great process of just examining books and whether or not they are a good fit for our students. I can tell you that not a single time that I reviewed a book did any of them deal with any of the kind of hot topic issues of the day that people are so concerned about. Never encountered CRT, never encountered anything that was inappropriate from a gender content standpoint. And it was a great process. So I've loved serving in our schools and in our district.
Ellen, what do you think are the biggest strengths of HPISD in our school community?
For sure, the fact that it's multi-generational, just having grandparents who are involved and invested in the community is a big one. And then I also think that just that we have parents who very generously give their time and talents to the district, whether it's through PTAs or dads clubs, serving in classrooms. The parent involvement in our district is really unparalleled. And then finally, that families and teachers really commit to this district for the long haul. We have great stability in this district in terms of the presence of families and educators.
Spencer, what do you feel like are the biggest strengths of HPISD in our school community?
Thank you. I think the district is frankly the best in the country. That's why we chose this district out of anywhere in the country. We moved our family here in 2014. And I continue to believe it's the best district in the country. Now, I separate the district from the administration, and where I have seen some issues. But in the district, what we have are people with phenomenal values, and that's number one. It's us is really what the district is. All of the residents that live here, and I think the district's dynamic. We do have multi-generational, as Ellen mentioned, and we also have new people moving in. And I think the district is also our land and the layout of our community. One of the things I really love is that all of the elementary schools are pretty much most people can walk to them from where they live. And then they all feed up into one middle school and one high school. I think that makes our district very manageable, and I think it makes it very cohesive. And I think that, having the Highland Park Village, right in the middle of, near Bradfield and Snyder Plaza and Inwood Village. I think the social aspect, I don't know about you, but I don't leave the bubble very often when I want to go out to dinner and see friends. So I think there's a great level of cohesion in this district. But certainly I think the values are of the people and the aspirations they have for their children. And you see that in the parental involvement. The parents are willing to be involved, whether that's at home helping with homework or volunteering within the schools, and frankly, lately, unfortunately, paying for private tutors. The parents here are willing to get it done, and that's what it takes. It takes the people to get this done.
Spencer, based on your involvement in the schools, what do you feel like is your biggest contribution? It can be things like working with the PTA, booster clubs, volunteer work, anything like that.
Okay. Yeah, like I mentioned, I spent the bulk of my time in volunteering and coaching youth sports, and I enjoy, frankly, any participation I get in my children's lives. But then of course, leading Bible studies is also something I value and I treasure, with the children in the community. But I think I don't really view my school volunteerism as something that really drives my decision to run for the board. I don't really view that as a resume builder. In fact, I really haven't taken the traditional path to the board of serving on the right committees, precisely because our administration has so corrupted the committee process. And that's one of the main reasons I'm running is the level to which the administrations had undue influence. Rather than working for us, they think that we should be serving them. And, through the way they do that is through, I think, a very cynical strategy of stacking the committees with administrators and stacking the rules such that the process leads to a predetermined outcome that the administration wanted. And so I think that to the extent I have learned something from volunteerism, it's the research and the knowledge of these processes and the machine behind it, and what we as board trustees can do about that to change this dynamic. Because people like Ellen and people like so many people in our community want to be able to contribute to the school and use their time and their talent in addition to their treasure to make the school a better place. And I think it's a real shame what the administration's done with that process. And I'm very much looking forward to reorienting that process so that when the parents contribute, their input is valued and utilized.
Ellen, based on your involvement in the school, what do you feel like is your most important contribution?
That really is a tie between that boundary redistricting committee and the literature review process at the high school. Both of those were things that I raised my hand for. I wasn't recruited for. The boundary redistricting committee, I felt like I could add value there because of our time in Lake Travis ISD. We had a walkable elementary school and a middle school that was 8 miles from home there. So I really felt like my knowledge of the community combined with having lived somewhere else for a while was great added value. And I do think it was. I think that process of collaborating with community members in a really transparent process that community members could come and sit in the Boone cafeteria and watch us deliberate and spread out maps and do all of that. And so I'm really proud of that process. And then with the literature review at the high school, again, I raised my hand because I love books. As a certified English teacher, I had value to add there. And each of those iterations of that process was really fulfilling because of the assortment of parents that were collected to do that all wanted to be there because it was a passion of theirs.
Ellen, what would your supporters say is your biggest weakness?
That I am small and quiet. I'm 5'2", and my voice doesn't really carry. So if they were going to say that I have a weakness, that's probably it. But I'm stubborn and steadfast, and so I think that that I overcome those quite well.
Spencer, what would your supporters say are your biggest weakness?
I think my biggest weakness, or at least I'm not sure what they say, they probably want me to keep things more brief. So I've been working on that in this meeting for Facebook Live. I certainly can tend to ramble on. Like I said, I've done untold amount of research on what's been going on in our district, what's been happening in education around the country and within the state of Texas. And so I can tend to take a coffee that's scheduled for 45 minutes and go on for 2.5 hours. So, certainly I can probably stand to control my my duration of my talks. I don't have a problem when it comes to volume. I tend to be too loud, if anything.
Spencer, what do you believe is the most immediate needs at HPISD, and what solution do you have to propose?
Well, the most immediate need centers around the academic rigor in our schools and the decline in our academic rigor. That's just absolutely unacceptable. And so the immediate need and where that's coming from, I guess before we can assess the immediate need, we have to ask ourselves, why would that be the case? Why would it be the case in a district that we just discussed is the best in the country? And it absolutely is. How could it be that academic standards could decline? And first, you have to be able to diagnose that, research it. What I found is that this is a problem that's nationwide. And it's a problem because the administrators are coming in from an educational leadership background where they're taught things like, including always leaning toward educational technology in lieu of teachers, devaluing of teachers, creating administrative bureaucracies. Things like, a Lucy Calkins. Lucy Calkins is a legend in educational leadership circles. They didn't want to let go of that. Okay, but and there are plenty of other core pieces of curriculum, experimental curriculum that they can replace it with. So what I've looked at, and I could go on and on, like I said about this, far longer than 3 minutes. But what I felt was the solution to that was to have a change at the top. I really think that we, I have nothing personally, no personal animus toward Tom Trigg. But as a doctor of educational leadership, I think he does come armed with theories like critical race theory and gender theories, and frankly, just an overall educational philosophy that runs counter to the aspirations of the parents of this community. And that's why I'm running, because I didn't find that anyone was willing to step up and publicly state that they were willing to make a change. And as a leader, it does require the courage to do that. And we have to say it publicly. This is a public process. So I feel that we do need to replace our superintendent. And what I've identified is that we need to replace our superintendent with a classical educator to go back to the traditions and the best aspects of HPISD to bring it back to its former glory.
Ellen, what do you believe are the biggest challenges that HPISD faces, and what solutions do you have to propose?
Well, I do agree with Spencer that the trust between our district and our families has eroded. And so it is important that we work to restore that trust. I believe that is best done through transparency. Parents absolutely have a right to know and provide feedback on what their children are learning in the classroom. And so we need to improve that path of communication and the responsiveness of the district. The responsiveness needs to be more timely and more proactive. So the process with reviewing Lucy Calkins and balanced literacy has taken almost a year. And that is, frankly, in my opinion, too much time. So I think that we need to push the administration to to act more decisively and to act in a more expeditious manner. And so in an immediate kind of follow on to the decision to pivot from Lucy Calkins, we need a definitive timeline of how we're going to proceed with that. Dates of when we're going to phase out Lucy Calkins and when we're going to assemble a committee, when we're going to choose a new resource, when we're going to train our teachers. We need to have dates that we're accountable to and a process that we're accountable to. And then the board needs to take seriously its role of establishing policy and measurable goals for student achievement, and then hold the administration accountable to those measures.
Ellen, what makes you uniquely qualified to address these challenges that we just talked about?
I think some of it is that long perspective, 3 generations of knowing what a Highland Park education has looked like and can look like. So I have 40 years of being known, trusted, and respected here, which gives me a seat at the table that is that will be listened to. I do think that I am someone who is driven by reason rather than emotion. I'm a researcher. I do due diligence. I won't vote for something that I don't know what's in it in the famous Nancy Pelosi Healthcare Act. So just that I will be diligent, responsive to our community members, and be that go-between, that representative between the community and the administration to make good on our commitment and our responsibility for student outcomes.
Spencer, what makes you uniquely qualified to deal with the challenges that we just talked about?
Well, number one, I believe I'm an agent of change. My background, I'm the CEO of a national insurance company where I'm responsible for the payment of claims to claimants across the country. I'm also responsible for the growth and financial results of that business. That includes producing budgets, getting budgets approved by state regulators in all 50 states, and also creating forecasts and creating business plans and strategies. And one of the things that is very important when you're in a business like mine is ensuring that spending is going toward the productive aspect of the business. And here, what I see in HPISD is a situation where we're not spending on the productive aspects of the business. We're spending on everything but, and we have a declining spending on our teachers, and that's a major problem. I don't view, Robin Hood. I like to focus on, as a businessman, I like to focus on the things that I can control, not the things that I cannot control. And I can't control Robin Hood, but what I can control is or what I can contribute to is the prioritization of the dollars that we spend. And the dollars that we spend should be prioritized on the people that help produce the results in our school, and that is the teachers. And there's very little else where the dollars should be prioritized. And so we need to really flip that in terms of where where those priorities are. And we just cannot do that with our current administration. We talked about Lucy Calkins. Lucy Calkins is just one piece of unacceptable curriculum. I can't seem to find a single piece of curriculum that I find acceptable, that I find up to the standards of the people of this community that our board has adopted in the last 10 years. All right. And all of that has been driven by the administration and their outside lobbying groups and all of these vendors that are supplying this. We don't need to do that. We can return to the traditional methods and curriculum. And in order to do that, we do have to replace the administration, because we're not going to do that by fighting this administration one piece of curriculum at a time. It's going to take too long. And frankly, we're volunteers. All right. And that's a wonderful thing, but we need to recognize the power that we have. And the power that we have is to replace a superintendent who's not aligned with our values. And in addition, we have a tremendous amount of other power. And I understand that. And we have not asserted that over the course of my time here. Okay, a board trustee has the power, unlike a state senator or a House representative, to request an opinion letter from the Attorney General. So if the state mandates something that we have to do, or the federal government mandates something we have to do, I will utilize that power and challenge that. Okay, I think uniquely about me, what qualifies me is I'm willing to fight for the children no matter what, and I won't give up.
Spencer, what is something positive that you can say about your opponent?
Oh, I thought Ellen did a great job yesterday. I told Michael that, and she's an excellent speaker. I think I really admire and appreciate that, her willingness to give her time to the district. We don't know each other that well, so I'm going off of what I've seen so far during the campaign. But I think she's very well composed, and I think that she is, someone who's been willing to give her time. I appreciate that.
Ellen, what is something positive that you can say about your opponent?
Well, Spencer is certainly passionate. He gives his entire self to whatever it is he's doing. So he's a high energy guy who stays focused.
And last, Ellen, why should we vote for you?
I hope that my neighbors and community members will vote for me because I am known, trusted, and respected, that I will listen to you, that I will serve you, that I will diligently dig into whatever concerns my community brings to the table, and I will work collaboratively with the other trustees and our administration. In the end, this is like a house that you got to remodel, and you can't take a wrecking ball to it. Our kids still living in it, and we got to keep doing school while we are making those changes. And we've got to rely on each of the specialists involved in that. When you've got a house, you've got plumbers and electricians and drywallers and architects, and they each have their area of expertise and gifts, and the same is true in education. And we need to ensure that we find and then utilize the talents and gifts of each of those specialists, of teachers, administrators. Everybody in the process is a stakeholder and has a right to be heard and a right to give input. And so I want to respect everyone involved.
And Spencer, why should we vote for you?
Thank you. And thank you for the kind words in the prior question, Ellen. And just to piggyback on Ellen's analogy of a construction project, thinking about, if you have plumbers and electricians and people working in your home or whatever property that you own, and they're stealing from you, and they are doing shoddy work, and they are proposing things that are going to damage the long-term value of what you hold dear, and you fire them and you replace them with someone who will get the job done right and someone that you trust. And for me, as a voter, I can't speak for the other voters, but I do know what I want as a resident of this community, as someone committed to this community, and as someone with children who desperately want to return to Highland Park schools. I actually wouldn't necessarily say that the number one priority would be that he's the CEO of a national insurance company, or that she served on all the right committees, or even that he has the right plan to fix the schools. That wouldn't be my number one priority. My number one priority would be when I looked at that person and saw the things that they said and did publicly, would they be willing to go to the mat for the children of this district against any opponent, no matter what pressure was put on? And I believe, and I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to do that every time. I don't prioritize, my relationships with with the other adults in our community over the needs of our children. And I think the adults in this community should be willing to bear a little discomfort in order to do what's right for the children. And I will be that agent of change to return our district back to its former glory.
Well, thank you so much, Ellen and Spencer, for joining us tonight and sharing your passions and your qualifications for being on the school board. We really appreciate it.
Thank you both.
Thank you for having us, Martha.
And I'll be posting this a lot up until Election Day, but don't forget to vote. Early voting starts April 25th and will end May 3rd, and Election Day is May 7th. Thank you all for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. And don't forget to listen to the Bubble Lounge at bubblelounge.net. We would love for you to check us out and listen to the podcast. See you all soon.